Okay, guys, today is a continuation of the lesson the other day, and we were looking at the menstrual cycle and graphing out. In the last lesson, we looked at graphing the thickness of the uterus, or you could say the thickness of the endometrium. In today's lesson, we're looking at hormone fluctuations. So I'm going to play through this video now, and it's very similar. The way you start this graph off, you're going to draw a graph here over time. So it's a menstrual cycle of 28 days, so time will be on the x-axis. And the y-axis, we're also going to have hormones in this one. So hormones concentrations, or you could say hormone levels. When you're drawing this out, it's very similar to what we did in the last lesson. You start with the x-axis and you divide it up. So remember the halfway or the midpoint here on the x-axis is going to be 14. And then you can fill in your 28 days at the end, and then think about your other, I suppose, crucial days. Day 5, so if you found the midpoint of 0 and 14, the middle would be 7. So 2 days before that, so just slightly before 7, you'll have your day 5. And again, very similar there for finding day 22. So again, the midpoint of 14 and 28, and that'll be 21. And so 1 day after 21, and you'll have found your day 22. So when you're drawing this all out, don't forget to put in your labels, as I said. So this is going to be time in days. The menstrual cycle, guys, is really, it's an average, really. For some women, it'll vary, but 28 days is something that we can use as a ballpark figure for most women. Okay. So you can see here now I've labeled the x-axis. The next thing then is labeling the y-axis, and that's going to be hormone levels. Now, because we're dealing with 2 different hormones today, we're not looking at FSH, we're not looking at LH, we're just looking at the 2 main ones that are crucial for pregnancy, of course, which are estrogen and progesterone. So you're going to have to draw a legend. Remember, a legend is just a color that represents a particular bit of information. So in this one, I think I'm going to pick black to represent estrogen, and red is going to represent progesterone. Now, when you're drawing this out, it's really important to bear in mind, what crucial things have happened here in this menstrual cycle. Okay, so starting with estrogen, if you think about it, estrogen is produced by the Graafian follicle. Okay, it's also produced by the ovaries themselves, so it remains pretty steady inside in the female reproductive system. You will see a bit of a dip though from day 1 to 5. And the dip is caused because the Graafian follicle, of course, is no longer a Graafian follicle. It is a corpus luteum. Okay, so there's a bit of a dip day 1 to 5, and you'll see this appearing now on the screen any moment. The next thing then is that whilst it does dip from day 5 onwards, remember the Graafian follicle has started to mature. Okay, so FSH has been released by the pituitary gland. It's gone down to the ovary. It's caused the egg cell and the Graafian follicle to mature. So what you start to see here is you start to see the Graafian follicle producing the estrogen needed, and it's producing it always up until about day 14. And at day 14, remember, then ovulation is happening. So the Graafian follicle is left behind, and it's now called a corpus luteum. And what we can say then happens is because the Graafian follicle is no longer producing the extra estrogen, there's a little bit of a dip, and then the ovary continues to make this estrogen then for us as well. So it's kind of remaining steady. So that is the estrogen levels. That's what you want to think about. And the next thing then is the progesterone. Progesterone, remember, is something that's produced by the corpus luteum itself. Okay, so the reason it's produced by the corpus luteum, remember, is to maintain the lining of the uterus. Okay, so it's there to make sure that implantation can happen. So if you look at it, the corpus luteum in the previous cycle would have basically shriveled up and died by day 28. So we're now going into day 1 to 5 here, and you can see here that it is dipping all the ways down and basically remains steadily at quite a low concentration because the corpus luteum, of course, was dead. It increases then from ovulation because the corpus luteum has produced the hormone, and it dips again when the corpus luteum dies. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's how